So I do this thing where I buy books and never read them. So we're gonna just go through this 1967 first edition. I paid $40 for this just down the road to know about all the different types of secret societies and whatnot. But we're gonna focus on chapter 7, page 152. Freemasonry, with all its pictures and stuff. There I am. There's the god. There's the architect. The architect. So Freemasonry. Freemasonry as an institution first appeared in the 17th century in England. In the 18th and 19th centuries, it attained a surprisingly wide influence in Europe and the United States, as its structure became the model for that of many secret groups. Though Freemasonry was by no means the oldest of ritual brotherhoods, it became the classic example of that kind of association. It was, and still is, generally regarded as a continuation of the English stonemasons' guilds of the Middle Ages. Later in this chapter, we should look at the evidence that can be brought in support of this view. But the first and most remarkable fact about Freemasonry is not much its claim to antiquity, a claim common among secret groups, as its enormous appeal today. In the past 100 years, with the rapid development of technology and the rise of scientific rationalism, we're an idiocracy, people. Many ritual brotherhoods have disappeared from Western society. Yet Freemasonry, with all its myth and ritual, still flourishes. There are some 750,000 Freemasons in Britain, over 4 million in the United States, and over 1 million more in the rest of the world. 1967. We are bound to ask what features of this particular group have enabled it to survive and maintain its attraction. To answer this question, we must consider the nature of the secrets Freemasonry claims to possess. But first, we must determine to what extent Freemasonry remains secret, bearing in mind that its mass appeal may depend largely on secrecy itself. God, the supreme architect, or geometer, creates the universe with a turn of his compass. A 14th century painting foreshadows the Freemason conception of God as the world's great architect, whose compasses have defined the limitations of good and evil. I like pictures. So, now I'm going to read the whole chapter. Freemasonry, conceived as secret science, has many characteristics of the secret society. An oath of secrecy that imposes death on the betrayer, secret passwords and signs and rituals that relate mythical history of its origins and include a mimed ordeal of death and rebirth. But while its secrecy tends to arouse the curiosity of most outsiders, its method of recruitment is likely to deter those who are merely idly inquisitive. No one can become a Mason unless he is sponsored by two people who are Masons already. Yet Masons are bound neither to reveal their membership to outsiders nor to try and persuade anyone to become a Mason. Even when the prospective member has found sponsors and made his application, he may have to wait several months before he is contacted by a lodge. It may be several months more before he is interviewed by the officers of the lodge and asked the prescribed question, why do you want to become a Mason? I don't know, fix the world, create a battery that gives energy and freedom to the world. Yeah. If his application is to proceed, it must be approved by all the officers he has seen. A further and even longer period of waiting may follow before he is actually initiated into Masonry. For the initiation ceremony is an elaborate one, and most lodges hold only a limited number each year. The candidate soon learns that Freemasonry is, in its own words, a peculiar system of mortality, veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. These symbols are taken chiefly from the actual craft of the stonemason, and they play a vital part in Masonic ritual and teaching. Since Freemasons are not working stonemasons, such tasks as smoothing and shaping the stone are interpreted as metaphors. As the master of the lodge explains when he ceremoniously presents the candidate with the stonemason's tools, we apply these tools to our morals. Morals. The typical initiation ceremony combines many archaic features. Immediately before, the candidate is divested of his jacket and his collar and tie. and also of any money or metal articles he may have about him. The ritual fillings. The ritual explains that this is done so that he will remember if he ever meets a fellow Mason in distress circumstances. I am being oppressed. Distress circumstances, the moment when he himself was received into Masonry, poor and penniless. His left trouser leg is rolled up above the knee, his shirt open to expose his left breast, and his right shoe is removed and replaced with a slipper. The ritual itself gives no explanation for these practices. He is also blindfolded, in Masonic parlance, hoodwinked. You're all being hoodwinked, guy. To demonstrate his state of darkness. And a running noose or cable tow is placed around his neck. Nice. After the lodge has been formally opened, he is led to the outer door by the tiler or doorkeeper. At the threshold, he is confronted by the inner guard, who holds the point of a dagger to his bare breast, barring his way. He is then led before the worshipful master, the chief officer of the lodge. The worshipful master recites a prayer to the Almighty Father and Supreme Governor of the universe. Now that's a title. Almighty Father and Supreme Governor of the universe. Fuck yeah. And puts a series of ritual questions to the candidate, who is required to answer according to a prescribed formula and without a slip of the tongue. Better not fuck it up, guy. Kneeling in front of the worshipful master's pedestal with his right foot formed in a square and the point of a pair of a compass touching his breast, the candidate then swears not to reveal, write, indicate, carve, mark, engrave, or otherwise delineate any part of the secrets of Masonry. Should he do so, he accept the penalties of having my throat cut across, my tongue torn out by the root and buried in the sand of the sea at a low water mark, or a cable's length from the shore, where the tide regularly ebbs, eddy currents, and flows twice in 24 hours, for the more effective punishment of being branded as a willfully purged individual, void of all moral worth and totally unfit to received into the worshipful lodge. The worshipful master then gives orders for the blindfold and the noose to be removed. Holy shit, so I would die, basically, is what I'm saying. I would die. Huh. And explains to the initiate that the significance of the trials he has just experienced. He gives him the step, the sign, the grip, and the word of an entered apprentice Freemason. A short pace with the left foot bringing the right heel into its hollow, and a hand drawn rapidly across the throat, the pineal sign. A pressure of the thumb to the joint of a man's first finger while shaking hands. Yeah, there you go. A pressure of the thumb on the joint of a man's first finger while shaking hands. And the word Boaz. You know, Jacqueline and Boaz, two pillars of Masonry. To which he ascribes the meaning in strength. The candidate then receives an apron that identifies him with the lodge as an entered apprentice. He learns that as such he symbolizes the first foundation stone of a building. You know the big M? The American flag looks like the Google Mail. And you got mail, the M symbol, that's the Mason apron. The fucking Google Mail symbol. Where was I? Apron. Anyways. He learns that, as such, he symbolizes the first foundation stone of a building on which he may rise, a superstructure perfect in all its parts and honorable to the builder. You know, Pink Floyd Animals? Stone, 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 stone. Like a stone. Anyways, he is also presented with the working tools of the first degree, a 24-inch gauge representing the 24 hours a day, part to be spent in prayer, part in labor and refreshment, work hard, play hard, and part in serving a friend or fellow Mason. A gavel representing the force of conscience, and a chisel representing the advantages of education. Man, I should have a big fucking chisel. I have chisels. There follows an exoneration to obedience, not only to the precepts of Freemasonry, but also to those of the Bible. There follows an exoneration to obedience, not only to the precepts of Freemasonry, but also to those of the Bible and to the laws of the state. Then the worshipful master gives an explanation of the tracing board of the first degree. The tracing board? Huh. The worshipful master gives an explanation of the tracing board of the first degree. One of the three symbolic pictures that are, three whiteboards, that are displayed to initiates. When the ceremony is over, the candidate is said to have worked the first degree. Within a few months, he may attain the other two craft degrees, those of fellow craft and master mason. Oof. Many Freemasons stop at this point, but a further ceremony called the Royal Arch admits enthusiasts to a great variety of higher degrees, derived from many different sources. Some are called cryptic degrees. Some are revived orders of charity, of chivalry. Some are revived orders of chivalry, such as the Knights of Templar and the Knights of Constantinople. You know, Knights of Columbus? Yeah, he was a good guy, right? The ancient and accepted rite, a system of 33 higher degrees, includes a legacy of Rosicrucianism, the degree of Knight of the Pelican and Eagle, and Sovereign Prince Rose Croix of Herdom, the ritual which is based on the crucifixion of Christ. Well, other initiates in the same system confer on the Masons such titles as Perfect Master, Prince of Jerusalem, Grand Pontiff, Chief of the Tabernacle, Commander of the Temple, Grand Elective Knight Kadosh, Grand Inspector, Inquisitor, Commander, and Sublime Prince of the Royal Secret? Oh, thank God there's pictures. Yeah, so, like, remember I did that one a while ago? Like, that's basically showing you everything you need, but, well, there's so much. If most of these titles are 18th or 19th century creations, the word Freemason itself dates back at least as far as the 14th century. No, it goes back further than that, right? You got Nimrod. Nimrod is Green Day's 5th studio album. It may have been coined as an abbreviation of Freestone Mason, freestone being a malleable type of stone used in fine carving and for such details as arches and windows. A freestone mason, therefore, was far more of a skilled craftsman than a rough mason who merely shaped rough stone into blocks. But the name of Freemason also had another significance, that those who possessed it were free men under the control neither of feudal overlord nor of municipal corporation. Most medieval workers had to belong to craft guilds that regulated their duties and conditions. These guilds, like the early trade unions, were not national. Each one was limited to a borough or city, whose mayor and council gave it a charter and ultimately controlled it. Its members included employees as well as wage earners, masters, and journeymen. In London, where masons were continually employed on big projects such as London Bridge, they belonged to an organization of this type, the London Masons Company. But elsewhere, their work often took them outside of the towns. Most houses were built of wood, and the worker in stone was chiefly in demand for the construction of cathedrals, monasteries, and castles. Unlike tailors or tanners, who worked in small domestic units consisting of one master and a handful of journeymen, the masons were employed in large groups. However, what distinguished the masons from other medieval workers was the fact that they were migratory. They had to find out what projects were in hand and make their way to work on them. All Freemasons apparently belonged to a national assembly, though records of when it met and how it functioned are scanty. On a local scale, they organized themselves in lodges. The lodge was a building such as one finds at a modern construction site. The lodge is in North Bear. Marvelous. In which the workmen took their meals and rested. The word came to mean the center in which they took the word came to mean the center in which they planned their work, and thus became a collective word for a body of masons. All right, 15 minutes. I'm going to stop it and keep going.